Hi, and welcome to another episode of Money Talk. Money Talk, where we talk about money. We talk about the things around money. We talk about the things that have to do with your mindset about money. I have two things. If you like what I'm saying, share it with others. Subscribe to this channel so you know when it's coming up. And the other is stay tuned because I'll be right back. Linda gave me the courage, the confidence to move forward.
And after I was finished with Linda K's training, I was at the next level.
It's Linda K. When you trust that piece of you that says, I got something to give, I have something to say, you know you've got something to do.
Get on your feet, shake your hands in the air. Welcome to the stage, Linda K.
And we're back. And we had somebody really special to talk to you about how to get your money game on in real estate. And you could be just a total amateur, or you could be a whole lot of things that are associated with thinking it out or trying to rock it out. But this guy was going to tell you that you could have money growing in your own backyard. His name is Cameron Meredith. And Cameron comes from a line of athletes and discipline and all the things that we're going to be talking about in terms of today's episode. Money grows in your own backyard or attached to your house or something else that you can do on your property. And that's called an ADU. That's a dwelling unit. And it's something here in California that is a little bit beyond just a little bit of a phenomenon. It's the law. With the housing crisis that we've got going on in the state of California, and I do mean we've got a crisis going on of affordable housing or, just having additional income. Well, I'd like to have you welcome to the stage, Cameron Meredith, to talk to us about how you can get some additional funds in your pocketbook soon. Welcome to the show. Hi, Cameron.
Hi, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And we're glad that we were able to find you. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing, what West Coast is, how'd you get into this? What's going on with this whole ADU fascination? What does that stand for?
Yeah, so ADU stands for accessory dwelling unit. And my background, I was actually doing real estate for about 5 years before I started a construction company. And at that time, we were working with investors, building custom homes, doing large remodels for flips and whatnot. And in 2020, the laws changed in California as far as ADUs. Every city throughout the state follows the same set of guidelines. So we started a company that is a design build company. We're out of Seal Beach, and we specialize in building ADUs.
Okay, so a little bit about ADUs and this whole fascination. There was a time, not that long ago, I'm going to say, we heard them in real estate. We heard things like granny flats or things like that. And a granny flat, typically to the unsuspecting, meant that granny flat or something that we converted in from the garage into something else was not what we call permitted, meaning nobody went and pulled a permit to go build that. And today we don't call it unpermitted, we just call it non-conforming. So there's two terms. Going to catch you up to speed first with the first one, which was unpermitted. It meant that if we put in a toilet or we put in a sink or we put in a shower or we put in a gas line for a shower, you need to pull permits for this. And it's also a cue to the county assessor's office that your property is now worth a little bit more money because it has this additional stuff, an extra room, an extra bathroom, but you don't see it claimed on your property tax. So it's called non-conforming today. It doesn't conform to the law. But in 2020, just as Cameron's indicating, the laws changed. Why did the laws change?
As you know, for a lot of people that live in California, we are in a housing crisis. We're way behind on what we need as far as inventory. So the state followed suit with cities and states like Washington and Oregon. I think Portland was one of the bigger cities that headed this. And they realized that, hey, by utilizing existing properties, whether it's garages or backyards, we can create inventory in dense areas, which is major cities, which is really where this is needed.
So outside of the granny flat where granny came to stay and maybe stayed occasionally or for the rest of her life, it became a real understood necessity that, oh, well, even if granny's not there, I could make some extra cash. So today things have changed quite a bit. From the just convert the garage and the garage still opens and closes to now it's a full enclosure, or it could even be detached. It could be a unit that was at the back of the property, or the kinds of things that requires you to actually pour a foundation and now do this. So you must have seen this in your business when you were doing construction, that there was an uptick in this. What made you decide, oh, this is so hot, I think I need to make this a business?
Well, I think there's a big gap because a lot of the big custom home builders or the people that are doing apartments don't really want to deal with it. And then you have a lot of mom and pops that can't really handle a lot of, the production and work to build these things. So by, us doing the design, engineering, and construction, we already had the crews and teams to do it. So we said, hey, this is a niche market. Why don't we get into it and specialize? And it's turned into what it really has today. I mean, we do about 30 plus jobs a year. I think next year we'll probably hit about 50 plus. So I think it's gonna continue growing. And as we see the legislation come out in California, you can just tell that it's always going to be more favorable, I think, going forward from here on out, whatever that is, tomorrow, next year. But I think we're going to see ADUs here to stay, and if not, even get more lenient.
So when you say you can get more lenient, what does that mean?
Maybe like size requirements might change. They might change, probably not setbacks, but they might change certain terms or certain things to make it easier. It's already pretty easy. You can always find the statewide guidelines at hcd.ca, I believe it is, but it's HCD. If you look up HCD ADU, you can look at that up, and that's a statewide set of ADU rules that every city follows.
So talk to me a little bit about what are some of the issues that homeowners face. What is the biggest or the number one reason why homeowners really don't want to tackle this?
I think cost is one thing. That's the thing, and then another reason is, if you don't want people living on your property, some people, most of the ones we do on single family are probably about 80% family members. But the ones that do rent out, a lot of people don't want a random person living there, which
Nobody wants a random person living anywhere
yeah,
under the bridge in the back of your car, let alone your backyard. So
yeah.
how do you get past some of these issues? Because when I think of an ADU, I think about a residential neighborhood, right? And maybe, I mean, I'm in Southern California, so in the greater Los Angeles area, we're used to seeing, an apartment over the garage area. We're used to seeing, garages at the back of a driveway. Some of these older homes built in the 20s had detached garages where they've converted them. But what are some of the ways that you can help a homeowner adjust to the mindset? Because it's mindset first before you take action, right? So your mindset about an ADU, how might you advise them about what they might do on the property? Do you have templates? Do you have, do you have models that they can replicate based on a certain amount of square footage and what the laws are?
Yeah, so we do have a floor plan booklet, 16 floor plans that are already pre-engineered, pretty standard, 1 bedroom studio, 2 beds. So people can look at that if they want to do a freestanding ADU. We already have those. But I always tell people it comes down to your why. Why are you building this ADU? Is it for rental? Is it for a family member? Is it for extra space? And that really tells me a lot because, if you're building for a family member, if it's an elder, why would you build a second story, ADU? It's probably better to just keep it on the first floor, right?
Right?
Um,
You
Same
don't
thing.
want them stumbling down in the middle of the night going to try and find the bathroom, say, for instance.
Yes, exactly. And same thing for cost wise. If if your goal is rental and you have enough space back there to build, I always advise keep it one story, because anytime you go up on a second story, the cost goes significantly higher. So just little things like that.
So what is this typical square footage or footprint? When I say footprint, I mean the big, the four corners of it, and a single story. Typically, how big is that? How many square feet is that?
So we do a lot of garage conversions. So a lot of those are anywhere between 320 and 400 square feet for your average two-car garage, which seems small. I would say the closet space is what becomes an issue at times. So if you have two people, that might become a little bit tight. But some people don't mind living in that small of a space, and you'd be surprised once we go in there and convert some of these spaces what they look like. But a lot of people as well will utilize the garage and then expand that garage footprint out to make a two-bedroom or a bigger one-bedroom.
So, when somebody decides they're going to convert, let's just say they're going to convert the garage. It sounds to me like that's usually one of the most likely places, right?
Mhm.
The first option that you're going to think about. In doing something like that, what are some of the things that you as the ADU West Coast has to think about and advise them on what's going to go and what that process is before they go to commit a decision about it?
Yeah, so first off, one of the things we do that's different than a lot of companies, we do a full site inspection. So we actually go out there. I present to them three documents once we do that. First thing's a proposal for design build. Second thing is a plot map with one of our preliminary designs. They don't have to pick that design. It's just an example to show you how it lays out on your lot, where our utility connections are and everything. And then the third thing is the ADU site inspection, which just entails important details such as, what the existing roof is, because we have to match that. Is it stuck over siding, etc. We do charge for that, which is reimbursable if the clients or if the potential client decides to move forward. That's a $500 fee. I always recommend people doing that if they're going to decide on getting other bids anyways, because they can use this report to send to other contractors and get bids that way as well.
That's excellent. So I would think that some of the hidden costs are, let's just say you've got a house that was built in the 60s. You wouldn't have typically had a 100 amp panel, an electrical panel. But now you've got you're building out something that's going to take on more electricity that isn't just going to be your standard plugs that are in the garage. Is that a hidden cost that you have to advise them that they may have to upgrade their panel?
Not necessarily that, because you can tell right away what that ampage is. So we know even on the site inspection, that's one of the things we look at. Now, a more unforeseen cost would be if we're doing a garage conversion. You need 12-inch footings, and in most cases, these older
What does
garage,
that mean, the 12-inch
it's
footing?
got to be 12 inches deep as far as the footing.
Oh,
So
so the concrete pad has to be 12 inches or a foot thick.
the footing does on the edge,
Yeah.
the perimeter. Yeah, so we don't know that until you start jackhammering and until we can figure out what that depth is. So that's one hidden cost, but we make that very aware that if it is not a 12-inch, then we need to underpin and pour the 12-inch, which will be extra. Another thing is your sewer. We don't know. We can speculate where the sewer line goes. We do not know the depth or where we can connect to that lateral until we get that scoped by a professional plumber.
So
So
those are standard costs, but now you're going to have, so let's just say you go ahead with an ADU. How long does it take? I mean, are you talking about prefab pieces or are you talking about custom locations with things that you've already kind of figured out based on your template?
so these would be stick builds. I would say regardless of the template, you'll probably save, if you do one of our already made plans, you'll probably save a month and a half or so, maybe 2 months. But on average, all these are stick builds. We don't do any prefab. But I would say the average timeline from design all the way to getting your occupancy is like 13 months plus. And it really depends on the design, how fast, the client makes their selections and whatnot. And then really too, what city. For example, Compton is very, very slow with a lot of things.
When you
As far
say
as
Compton is slow, you're talking about the permit process?
not only that, even the inspections, for a while in the summer, it was a month to order inspections. So we couldn't
Oh my
have,
goodness.
yeah, they couldn't come out for a month. And then if there's corrections, it's another month, right? So they've gone a lot better now and it's fixed. But still, things like that could prolong it. Another thing that could prolong it is if you do get separate meters, which is not necessarily required every time, but if you get a separate electrical meter, gas meter, water meter, Edison in the last couple months has been taking about a month and a half to install their meters. So we can't
I
get
am very familiar with those spot checks and signing off on those. But talk to me about what are some alternatives that you could have to having a separate meter? I mean, there are let's talk about the advantages. Clearly, whoever's using the water, actually, it's not water because you only have one meter coming for water from from the street to the house. So if you want to sub meter that, that's a different discussion. But having a separate meter that says turn the heat on, keep the lights on, run hot water as long as you want because you're paying for it. But what are some alternatives if you're not going to do a separate meter for them to calculate how much is that tenant actually using in your utilities?
So I'm not sure how they would calculate that. I do know the other alternative is like a lot of people do it with a family member. We just tie into the front. So it's 1 meter. You'd still run into the front house meter. It would just be the ADU would be more electricity or more water that would be added on that would be using. So a
Sure.
lot of people do that. But as far as calculating if you're going to rent that out, what I would suggest is skipping the gas, just go all electric. And then you can at least split the electric meter, which is honestly not a big deal. I would suggest that for sure. And then just run the water and just have, figure something out with the water with the front house and the back. That's probably what I would do.
So I'm guessing, and you just said something important about just run the meters and be done with it. But isn't there a law coming up, or we're being grandfathered into it, particularly ADUs, for new construction and electric only?
Yeah, there is. And honestly, it really depends on the cities and also if you're building a multifamily ADU versus a single family. But yes, you are correct. Most people are going all electric anyways. Really, the only reason we ran it was for a tankless gas water heater, but they have electric ones too, which we've been installing. So the gas is really not a big deal. A lot of times too, though, some people want a gas stove, which might be a thing. But if you're renting it out, I suggest going all electric and then doing
Oh, and
the
there's so many great alternatives to just a standard electric. How about induction cooking? Have you had any requests for doing single burner or dual burner and microwave, and that's it for the little kitchens? Maybe taking, a, 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 a 3x5 closet that might be, and turning that into the kitchen for for that unit for the ADU.
Yeah, so there's certain requirements, and I don't recall off the top of my head, but as far as what in statewide, as far as what will suffice for a kitchen, so there's certain things you have to have. There's certain measurements that have to meet those requirements. But we've done an ADU in Long Beach out of a garage that was about 225 square feet, and that was
That's
just a
tiny.
really yeah, and it was really cool. It was about I think it was like 1930s themed because the front house was built in 1930s from Wrigley. So they had all these appliances from like Art Deco, like those type of appliances, which was really cool. But it was a really small 4 burner.
That is, yeah. And I can remember being in an apartment building with a stove that couldn't have been much wider than this and still had 4 burners on it. It's amazing how much you can actually, put on something that's small and actually produce food that you're willing to eat that isn't burnt to a crisp. So there is that. How did you get into this? I know you said that you were doing construction, but clearly the opportunity that you saw was that, were you working with a partner? Were you working with, did you just see the opportunity? You said, oh my God, this is going to be it. This is 2020 and we just have a new law and I'm ready to go.
So my two of my partners, one of them, they're both brothers. Chi and Chung are their names, and one's a structural engineer and also a general contractor, and his brother's an architectural designer. And then we have a bunch of engineers on staff, that we work with. So really when it was 2020, we built a couple ADUs for some clients, and we got together and said, hey, since the laws are changing, I think this is going to be a huge opportunity. And like I mentioned earlier, a lot of the bigger builders that do a lot of custom homes and whatnot, they think these are too small and too much of a headache, because it's really the same process as building a custom home. I mean, it's the same inspections, same everything you go through, it's just a lot smaller. So we really saw the need for a company to do design build and to kind of fill that market, which is really what made us decide to get going on it.
That's pretty cool. Now, tell me about the entrepreneurial journey. Did you grow up in an entrepreneurial family?
I did, yeah. So my dad grew up in Long Beach, and he was doing security since he was about 14, 15 years old. And he started a security company. He grew that. I think he ended up at the end of it being in 6 states, and they would do security for large music festivals, conventions. They did the Seahawks Stadium, Alabama football stadium,
Oh my goodness.
tennis and all that. So he grew it into this huge company and actually eventually sold it a few years ago. And he was definitely an entrepreneur. So that's what really kind of pushed me to want to do my own thing.
I think a lot of people are very afraid to take that risk, get out there and start something new. What would you say to those that are considering starting a business?
I would say a lot of it's just being relentless, because I mean, there's a bunch of times where I doubted myself. I mean, the first 2 or 3 years, I wasn't making any money. In fact, probably lost money. And luckily, on that note, I had a lot of support from my family, right? So I was living with my mom at the time because it was hard times, and she had an extra bedroom. So, these are stuff that I don't really talk about, but it's really that journey and pushing through. And I think the main thing is, if you have a vision and you truly believe in it and you truly like doing what you do, it will really take you far. And for me, my love is construction and doing this, and especially ADUs. So for me, it just was keep grinding, keep getting through the hard times, and eventually you're gonna go through, and it's only gonna get better from there.
I don't know if you know who the author Stephen Pressfield is, but he wrote a book. He's written several books. One of those I love to read at this time of the year. It's the War of Art, instead of the Art of War, but the War of Art. And he wrote, turning pro is a mindset. If we're struggling with fear, self-sabotage, procrastination, self-doubt, the problem is we're thinking like amateurs. Amateurs don't show up. Amateurs crap out. Amateurs let adversity defeat them. The pro thinks differently. He shows up. He does his work. He keeps on trucking no matter what. Now, I would say that, yes, you did have an entrepreneurial journey with a family and seeing that, but you also had something else going on. You were an athlete since high school, whether it was basketball, football, track, or field. Tell me about how that created discipline for you to keep going when things get tough.
Yeah, so I played sports ever since I was a little kid, mainly football, and luckily I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship and go to the University of Nebraska and play there. And I think from high school, I had a really good high school football coach who just retired, and as well in college. And football is a very tough, and you got to be mentally tough to play the sport. Not only do you get hurt, but there's days you don't want to go to practice, but it's all about staying focused on the process, which my coach said a lot, and then controlling what you can control, right? You can't control stuff around you, but you can control your attitude. You can control how you take on that next day or that next opponent. So those values were instilled in me, and I think still today. Even when I was out of college, I was calling loan officers for my first job, and as much as I hated it, I would give it 110%, and I would give it, as best I could. And I did learn a lot, but it really wasn't my thing. But I think the moral of the story is I always gave 110% no matter what. That was just kind of what I was ingrained to do.
Do you ever feel like I don't want to get up. I really want to just kind of take the day off. I want to spend the day at the beach. I want to, what makes you get up and get that, there are people counting on me, because there's a lot of people that particularly entrepreneurs that go, well, I am the captain of my ship. I can steer it any way I want, and I can get those deals anytime I want until we can't. What is in your mind that says you have to do this? Is it a strategy? Is it a goal? Because they're different. What's your opinion about that?
Well, I'm very structured. So every day you'll see my day calendar. I have stuff going on every week. I have a new calendar, and I always have a lot going on. So I have to live a life of structure. And to be honest, I don't have time to slow down or go to the beach or take some time off. And I do think that's important. And there's a time and place. I will go on vacation, twice a year and try to put the phone away. But as being in this position, there is really no time off, and I'm okay with that. And that's what I signed up for. But at the end of the day, it is hard to step away, which I also do think is necessary at times.
So, do you ever have to answer tough questions to your clients?
All the time. Yeah, construction is very confrontational as far as disruptive. You got trash everywhere. You got open trenches. So yes, a lot.
What's the hardest thing for you to handle when you're talking with your clients?
I would say the toughest thing is a lot of times people in their mind have this perception of how construction goes or how it should go. And I think we've done a lot better job at explaining how it's going to go and what the process is, because at first there was a huge disconnect there. And it's not their fault that they don't understand how it goes, because I think we need to explain it better as contractors, whether it's me or somebody else. But I would say that's really the biggest argument was on the trash hauls and stuff like that. Whereas if you're explaining why and you're explaining, the inspection process, that becomes a lot easier for them to digest once we start construction.
Do things always go as planned?
Never. No, construction, I'm telling you, not one job is perfect. There's always stuff but at the end of the day, like I always tell people, we're going to build you a product that you're going to like and you're going to be satisfied with, and wait till we get to the end. But no, every project, there's always issues that come up every time.
Now, you've been very quick to assess what you do, make an adjustment, and then make the correction and move on. What would you say are the top, I'm going to say 3 qualities that you have to have when you're in business for yourself and you're just starting out?
Determination is one. As I mentioned, you got to keep going. No matter what, there's going to be days where you're going to doubt yourself. There's going to be days where you might be embarrassed at the questions you ask or the things you do, but keep going. Second would be passion. I think passion's very important. And then I think the third thing is learning from people that are better than you, or that you want to learn from, or that have more experience. And that's one thing that I did. I joined an architect and a structural engineer GC. So they're teaching me every day. And I think that's vital to growing as far as your industry and being the person that you want to be as far as business wise.
So you're saying that surrounding yourself with people that are better than you, structure, having a clear vision, because having a passion for something, passion can burn out. I mean, I can think of 1,000 things, but you're going to really enjoy what you're doing. I think that's what you're saying, is that, beyond passion, you really have to enjoy it, because you're going to live and breathe it, and you're going to eat and sleep it every single day. I love the idea that entrepreneurs, how many days off do entrepreneurs take a year? Just what's your guess?
Not much.
None. Because I don't think I've ever met an entrepreneur that goes on vacation and just never checks his phone, never checks his emails, is not even contactable. Even when they're on a boat, they're like checking in, they're checking to see what's going on. Mm-hmm. So I love the fact that you've got your entrepreneurial journey and the people that you're surrounded with. What would you say to yourself now in retrospect about your first year and starting out? How would you coach yourself?
It's an interesting question. I would say, um, I would say maybe take criticism better from clients, and I guess from the construction process, as I mentioned, because a lot of times we were doing custom homes or homes where people weren't there, right? And when you're dealing with homeowners, again, it goes back to communicating how the construction is going to go. So I would say just listening to the feedback and then coming up with a plan to build that communication and to explain to them how that's going to go a little bit earlier, because it wasn't until about a year or two after we did it that we really tried to just started to streamline that and get that going a lot better.
That's an awesome, awesome outlook and perspective. Cameron, I want to thank you for joining me today. The fact that you are as young as you are, starting a business and all with all the great principles of entrepreneurship, cooperation, surrounding yourself with the best and the brightest that you can work with. I want to thank you for joining me today. One more time, Karen, can you put it up on screen how people can find him so you can find the hidden dollars in your own house? Thank you, Cameron.
Thanks so much, and so sorry about that earlier with the
No worries. We're here and we found you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us for another episode of Money Talk, where we don't just talk about money, we take action with that plan. Thank you. Do you like to talk about money? If you do and you'd like to be a guest, contact me at lindak360.com.